Thank you all so much for coming out. It's really great to see you today. Ki iwi o tēnei whenua, a waitaha, nai tahu mena hapu katoa, tēnā koutou katoa, kei te mihi nunui ki a koutou, mō koutou manaakitanga ki a mātou, tēnei rā, kia ora. So, it's great to see you all here. I want to especially acknowledge Sarah Templeton, who is one of the local board members here from Christchurch. So thank you very much for coming out and supporting us today. I want to acknowledge the great team of Green MPs who are here. The whole of the caucus is here in Christchurch today supporting this announcement and as part of our demonstration of support for the issues that Christchurch is facing in support of this policy. We stand with you, Christchurch, as you work to transform your city into the city that you love. We love New Zealand. We love Christchurch. And the Green Party has the plan to create a cleaner, fairer and smarter New Zealand, where our beaches are free from the threat of oil spills, where our rivers are clean enough for our kids to swim in, where our economy is smarter and greener and more innovative, and where, at the end of the day, every child in this country has enough to thrive. Today we are announcing our Greener Christchurch plan for this election. We know how important it is to rebuild this beautiful city, and we also understand the unique opportunity that we're presented with after the devastation of the earthquakes. An opportunity to create a better, more resilient, more sustainable city, a cleaner, fairer, smarter city and country. Earlier this year, I was very pleased to be here in Christchurch to announce the Green Party's Warm Up Christchurch plan, a plan to make Christchurch homes warmer, healthier and more environmentally friendly than ever before. Our kids at the Heart Schools Hub program would benefit all low decile schools in Christchurch, and as part of this program, Christchurch is the first priority for the building of new not-for-profit early childhood education centres on school sites. Each of these schools would have a nurse, free lunch, free Oscar and after-school care programs, and a paid hubs facilitator, a community development worker. Green Party wants to make sure that there is a genuine renewal plan for education in Christchurch where schools and sector leaders are involved in the decision-making and can review changes and make plans for the future of your city. And today we are building on these and other policy announcements by committing to smart transport solutions, a greener rebuild, a return of local democracy, and spending that puts the needs of Christchurch people first. The Green Party are the political leaders of a strong and growing movement in New Zealand. A party vote for the Greens on September the 20th will mean that we will have the influence in a new and progressive government to put our plan for a cleaner, fairer, smarter New Zealand in place. But first, here to announce our plan for a greener, fairer, smarter Christchurch rebuild for a vibrant, accessible and resilient Christchurch is Eugenie Sage, the Green Party's Christchurch spokesperson. Following Eugenie, we will have Julianne Genter, the Green Party's transport spokesperson, to outline our smart transport solutions for Greater Christchurch to help get this city moving. And then finally, we will be joined by our guest speaker today, Susan Crumdike, who will also set out her vision for this city. So, first, I'd like us to welcome Eugenie Sage. Thank you.
E nā mana, e nā reo, e nā iwi, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I love Christchurch. I want to live in a beautiful city which remembers its past and which weaves that into its present and future. A city which recognises the significance of this place, Ototahi Christchurch Te Ngāi Tahu. I want to live in a city which celebrates its natural landscapes and its location on the edge of the Pacific Ocean, sheltered by the Port Hills, threaded by the Otakaro, Avon and Opawaho Heathcote rivers, and with an estuary which hosts more bird species than there are people in this room. I want to live in a city which has strong local decision making and meaningful public conversation about the decisions that affect our community. I want to live in a city that is compact and easy to get around on foot, by bike and by bus. Most of all, I want my city back. I want to be able to have a say. I want to be able to have a say in how we recover and rebuild and the type of future we create here in Otatahi, Christchurch. We can get our city back. We can rebuild a livable, accessible city with a sense of identity and strong, connected communities. But to do that, we need new leadership and a change of direction. It's time for leadership that delivers a greener, fairer, smarter and more democratic Canterbury rebuild. It's time for a genuine partnership between central and local government and a genuine voice for the people of Christchurch. That's why I'm proud to be here launching the Green Party's plan for Christchurch. We're not announcing any expensive, shiny new anchor projects today. Christchurch has had enough of extravagant promises. But we are committing to restoring local democracy and changing the way decisions are made. The national government has no respect for local democracy. It axed an elected regional council and has sidelined the Christchurch City Council in major decisions about the rebuild. Government ministers, Sarah and its army of consultants are making significant decisions on behalf of Christchurch citizens with little or no public input. The Green Party believes that the public and Christchurch City Council should have a much greater role in decisions about spending priorities and new development. We will repeal the Environment Canterbury Act and ensure that there are elections for the Canterbury Regional Council in 2015. We want Cantabrians to be able to elect councillors to make decisions about how our land, water, air and coast are managed and how regional rates are spent instead of government-appointed commissioners. The post-earthquake emergency is long over and the winding back of Sarah's emergency powers is long overdue. Those draconian powers have denied the public a say in the demolition of more than 200 significant heritage buildings in the central city. Those powers mean that it's government ministers, not city councillors, that are appointing the hearing panel for the review of the district plan. The Green Party will end Sarah's emergency powers, wind up Sarah and put the City Council back at the heart of decision making. We will work in partnership with the City Council to remove any pressure on Council to sell the city's strategic assets like Orion, the Littleton Port Company and the Christchurch International Airport Company. We want the Council to be able to invest in facilities that make a difference to people in their communities. Libraries, swimming pools, places to meet, places for children to play, and to be able to repair our infrastructure, our roads, our sewage, our stormwater and wastewater infrastructure, without having to sell the city's assets. To do that, we will be flexible in how the cost-sharing agreement between the Crown and the City Council is to operate. We don't want to foist extravagant, unaffordable mega projects on the Council and Christchurch as the national government has done. The Green Party will open the books on the anchor projects to ensure that money is well spent, that business cases are done for each project and that these stack up. We want to ensure that the rebuild is affordable and that we make sound decisions which protect the city's assets for the long term. Right now, a new covered stadium is not a priority. Not proceeding with the stadium would save the Council more than $250 million and the Crown nearly $40 million. It would free up funds to increase the Crown's contribution to repair horizontal infrastructure and would be a major step in helping close the funding gap. The Council doesn't need and should not be panicked into selling off or selling down strategic assets as the national government is pushing it to do. There are alternatives to asset sales. An investment the Green Party will make for Christchurch, our garden city, is to bring more green spaces into the rebuild. We are committed to making the Avon Otakaro River Park a reality. The park will connect the city centre to the eastern suburbs and the sea. It will strengthen Christchurch's identity as a beautiful, creative and enjoyable city for both residents and visitors. We will allocate $20 million to the Christchurch City Council to progress planning and community consultation on the river park, to construct interim cycle and walking trails, facilitate community gardens, restore mahinga kai sites, better recognise and respect wahitapu, and undertake feasibility studies on other proposals. And consultation by the Avon Otakaro Network, the Evo Space Initiative and others has generated a host of ideas for the future of the residential red zone. The Green Party will engage with and listen to the community and work alongside the Council in deciding the future of this area. We can help make Christchurch a more resilient city if the location and design of both commercial and residential development and our infrastructure takes better account of sea level rise and more extreme weather events, and if we incorporate climate adaptation into city planning and into the rebuild. To help achieve this, the Green Party will reallocate $15 million from the Crown contribution to the rebuild for research, planning and community engagement by local councils and science agencies to promote and implement climate change adaptation. That will include identifying areas where a managed retreat may be desirable because of natural hazards such as flooding and sea level rise, and there are high mitigation costs. Christchurch can have a greener, fairer and smarter rebuild, and the city and the region can have strong local democracy. We commit to that if the Green Party is part of a new government after September the 20th. Integrated land use and transport planning will help create a more livable city. And our green transport spokesperson, Julianne Genter, will now outline how our green transport solutions will get Christchurch moving. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. So after the earthquakes, Christchurch City Council ran an award-winning consultation process called Share an Idea. And the message that came through from the people of Canterbury was very, very clear. They want to live in a vibrant, people-friendly city that's easy to get around. Unfortunately, the national government and Jerry Brownlee have consistently ignored their wishes. They've delayed implementation of transport plans. They are continuing to spend enormous sums of money on just a few stretches of motorway around the country, rather than investing in smart, green infrastructure like safe walking and cycling, clean buses and trains, and light rail. Now, we know that the horrendous congestion that's afflicting Christchurch right now is not simply the road reinstatements and works. It's because now so many people are entirely reliant on a car to get around. And the best way to reduce that congestion is to make it easier and more practical for more people to leave the car at home. So this is entirely possible. It's not only good for congestion, it saves families and businesses money when we have a more balanced transport system. It creates a healthier and happier city where people want to be. And it is not technically difficult or expensive. It just requires a new approach to the problem. If we do what we always did, we will get what we always got. So we need a smarter, greener approach to transport. And this is how we will do it. The Green Party's plan has 5 components. Firstly, we will establish Canterbury Transport, a single body responsible for transport strategy, planning, and delivery across Greater Christchurch. It's absolutely essential that Canterbury Transport be run on a democratic and transparent basis, and they'll be accountable to the people of Canterbury for the strategic direction that they will implement. At the moment, the responsibility for transport strategy, planning, and delivery is spread over 6 different agencies, each with its own plans and priorities. This complex approach has produced multiple transport plans, but has a poor record of delivery. So an integrated approach, we believe, will deliver more for the people of Canterbury. Secondly, Canterbury, and Christchurch in particular, has a proud history of being a cycling city. In fact, at the last census, about the same number of people were cycling to work in Christchurch as are cycling to work in Portland, which is the cycling capital of North America. So 15% of people in Christchurch regularly choose to use a bicycle to get around, and another 30% would choose to cycle if it was safe. So the Green Party will prioritize safe walking and cycling. Over the next 5 years, we have allocated $90 million to safe walking and cycling projects. And this will not only help people get to work, our Safe to School plan will be particularly oriented around getting kids to school safely, on their bikes or on foot, which is better for them, and it will massively reduce congestion. The next part of the plan is improving our bus services, and this also isn't difficult. We simply need to give buses priority and ensure that buses are frequent enough to be a realistic option for more people. Last week we announced our transport plan for the whole country, and we focused on what was going to happen in Auckland, but the same is true in Christchurch. We can have a bus every few minutes at peak time in Christchurch simply by allocating the road space and putting a little bit more money into services. And that's what we want to do for the people of Christchurch, so they have the option of getting around safely. We are allocating a large, substantial amount of money to a rapid transit network for Christchurch. We don't know yet what that will be. Canterbury Transport will be responsible for setting the direction and finding the specific plan. But over the next 5 years, we've allocated $250 million to the future rapid transit network that will shape the rebuild and shape the city of Christchurch so that it is a city that is easy to get around, that has an energy-efficient transport system, a resilient transport system, and that supports a city that's really putting people first. We also announced in our transport plan last week that we would be reducing fares, and particularly for students. So more affordable fares are a big priority across the country, and in particular, we have announced our Student Green Card, which will give free off-peak travel to students. That includes students in Canterbury, and I know that this will be a big welcome relief for University of Canterbury. Have told me that they have some major issues with car parking because students simply can't afford to take public transport. It's not practical and easy. If we have fast, frequent buses that are serving more people, integrated with bicycles, integrated with other transport solutions, and free off-peak travel, that is a huge incentive for students to leave the car at home. Finally, there is an urgent need to address some congestion that has been caused by the huge increase in people living out in Rangiora, Rolleston. And so we have the money allocated to establish an interim rail service along the lines of the report that was just delivered that NZTA said they simply would not fund. It's not that expensive, and frankly, it makes more sense to use our existing infrastructure at low cost than to keep putting up with congestion. There's no way that for the amount of money that we would be spending on establishing an interim rail service that we could build extra lanes of motorway in those areas. So we would be looking to implement that within a year. So all up, the Green Party has found, in addition to the money that will continue to be spent on the reinstatement of roads in Christchurch and ongoing road maintenance, we'll be investing almost $500 million over the next 5 years in smarter, greener transport solutions that will make Christchurch an even better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie and Julianne, for setting out the Green Christchurch plan from the Green Party. I'd like to welcome our next speaker now, Susan Crumdyke. Excuse me. Our next speaker, she'll be well known to many of you here. Susan is a professor of the University of Canterbury. She teaches transition engineering, looking at advanced energy systems, remote and renewable energy systems, planning for a future that has a constrained energy supply, systems adaptation, and more recently has put her considerable expertise into a plan for Christchurch that is sustainable, compact, and lively, known as From the Ground Up. She's written over 138 journal articles, chapters in books and conference papers, and it is a real privilege to have you, Susan, here with us today to share a bit of her view on what makes for a great sustainable city. Please welcome Susan.
Safety, that would be great. You know, I bike Christchurch, and it actually is a mode choice, not a death wish. It's just, you know. That's right. All right, well, thank you for inviting me. I've been asked to talk about what makes a good sustainable city. Well, for the past 15 years at Canterbury, I've spent a lot of time with a lot of colleagues from other disciplines, 5 PhD students, master's students, and a lot of undergraduates, exploring just what makes a city good and sustainable. I'm going to tell you our research findings. So I'll explain the 2 fundamental principles involved in what makes a good sustainable city. From the first principles, a sustainable city is there, and an unsustainable city is not. No, seriously, sustainability is kind of an all or nothing proposition. You know, your city either continues to be a place where people get together to live, to trade, to work, to make things, to learn, or it doesn't. So the primary factor that determines sustainability is this: is there a reason for a city to be there? You have to answer that question for yourself. What are the oldest cities that you can think of? Why are they still there? Gives you a clue. They're in the right place. They're centers. They're destinations for trade, for learning, for governance, or for all of the above. In contrast, many cities that were built to develop one finite resource or to build one particular thing are ghost towns. All right. Therefore, really, we can't make Christchurch sustainable. Are there good reasons for Christchurch City to be on the Canterbury Plains? Do any or all of those reasons depend on use of unsustainable resources? Good question. That leads us to the second fundamental condition for sustainable cities: adaptation. Right. There are some truly ancient cities in the world. None of them have remained static. They've all changed. They've all adapted to new ideas, new technologies, new religions, new infrastructure. A lot of them have even survived devastation of war, natural disasters. What we can do is make Christchurch adaptable. All right. But right now, that would mean doing something that we are not very good at, and that is investing in the long-term portfolio. We're pretty good at investing in immediate benefit, or we're pretty darn good at investing in discounted future benefits, but we don't currently have a tried and true approach for evaluating private and public investments with benefits running 100 years or more in the future. The biggest problem with developing a long-term investment approach is that really when we look out 100 years, we don't like what we see. The story we tell ourselves about the inevitable march of progress in technology, the inevitable continuous growth of energy and resource supplies, is just not commensurate with the reality of finite resources and climate change. For sure, 100 years from now, the way people use fossil fuels for transportation will be totally different from today, for sure. In fact, the amount of fossil fuels used in private motor cars will probably be more like it was 100 years ago. For sure, 100 years from now, people will know that 2 degrees warming of the planetary climate system was too much. For sure, 100 years from now, people will value time with their families. They will value clean water, tasty food, beautiful landscapes, having fun. For sure, 100 years from now, the earthquakes will be historical record, as will the things that we accomplished during the rebuild. For sure, 100 years from now, most of the things that we think are so important on any given day, the newspaper headlines, who said what, the upcoming election, will be forgotten. People 100 years from now are already committed to the consequences of everything that we have done up until this date. We can't change that. For the next 100 years, people are already committed to adapting and redeveloping the stranded assets that we used to think were so important and that we needed so badly. For the next 100 years, people will be in the market for homes. They will be in the market for businesses in really good areas of the city. It is probably time now to be honest about what good means. Today we're having a hard time remembering what things looked like in the CBD before. At least I am. Today we feel upset that there are still people struggling. Today we're getting impatient for life to just get back to normal. And today, if we're going to make the long-term investment, would we have to set aside our own needs and our own desires? Aha, now we start to see what good really means. There are only two conditions for what makes a good city. Only two. One, the city has public infrastructure that works. Picture a city that doesn't have public infrastructure that works. It's not good. Right. Number two, there is a demand for property in that city. It's the place people want to be. It's where they want to do their thing. The Skrit are getting on with the infrastructure. They're doing the engineering. They're doing the construction. They're getting that core infrastructure back to work. It's not cheap, it's not easy, but that cooperative model and fair pricing and rewards for good work, getting rid of the perverse incentives, that is getting that massive job done. And it's getting it done pretty quick. Now, what are we going to do from the ground up? That's the question. My research group are working on ways to use the data that we've got, the knowledge that we've got, all of the research up to now about how cities work, to model the urban metabolism, that's what we're calling it, how it works, and to understand the transition of a city. We're working to discover the most profitable adaptations and to quantify the costs and benefits of crazy new ideas, of building back the old things, and of doing nothing. Those are our options. Now, I myself am a heretic, and I'm an innovator. I'm an explorer of possibility and an adventurer into the wilderness of uncertainty, where the only two facts I know are that everything is going to change and that nothing is going to change. Okay. So when I use my foresight superpowers, what I see is people getting on with the struggle of our rebuild, getting on with making big decisions, getting on with our disagreements. But what I also see is that there's a huge potential market for cooperative development, for development that's informed by that long-term transitionary view, by transition engineering meaning how do you actually get it to work, and that's led by communities who can see for a few moments right past our current struggles and right on towards the legacy that we are creating today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. It was fantastic. So that concludes the Green Party's announcement for the Greener Christchurch plan. We'd like to invite you to stay for a cup of tea and some refreshment at the back there. And if you haven't had an opportunity, we have our entire Green Party caucus here today. So if you want to speak, talk to any of the MPs, they're all here. Stand up. so that we can see. Yeah, fantastic. Well, not quite all of us, but nearly. Thank you.